There we go. So yeah, so I've been in ministry about 30 years, and I've kind of done everything you can think of as far as like church ministry. I've been an associate pastor, a senior pastor, a worship pastor, a children's pastor, a youth pastor. I've been a janitor. Uh, I've led sozo ministries. I've led theophostic ministries. I've led other inner healing ministries. I have a master's in counseling. I have a master's in ministry. I have a lot of experience with a lot of different methodologies and tools and things to bring people to Christ and to bring transformation to people. And I discovered encounter coaching about 7 years ago and have been practicing it for about 6 years through Tony Stoltzfus. And it has been by far the most powerful tool, methodology, or fill in the blank, that I have ever experienced and that I've ever been privileged to practice. So I am a facilitator and trainer and coach for Leadership MetaFormation. Again, been doing that for about 6 years. And I'll share, first of all, just a little story to hopefully illustrate a little bit the power of coaching and specifically the power of encounter coaching. 3 years ago, I mentioned I have a 3-year-old son. 3 years ago, my wife had a perfect pregnancy, and she was super hyper vigilant. Like she would not eat raw food. She would not drink coffee. She would not, she did it all, right? She exercised, perfect pregnancy all the way through. But when she went into labor, her water broke. She started having contractions about 30 seconds to a minute apart right off the bat. So we knew something was wrong. Well, I'm going to condense this story, of course, but we had a very traumatic birth. She ended up having to have an emergency C-section. Jackson was born lifeless, and they had to resuscitate him for 15 minutes. We spent the next 30 days in the NICU. And so she almost bled out. I almost lost her. And Jackson had to be life flighted as soon as he was born and resuscitated about 6 hours away to do a therapy that this one hospital, it was only this one hospital was able to do it. So I almost lost my wife and my son in the same 24-hour period. Had I not been familiar with the encounter coaching tools, and I'll just leave it at that. Had I not been familiar with encounter coaching, I don't think I would have made it through, not just that day, but I would say even the next 3 months. Definitely the month of the NICU, and then of course coming home, readjusting, all of those things. But because I was familiar with these encounter coaching tools, I was able to coach myself kind of in the darkest place of my life and connect with Jesus in a more profound way than I ever could have had I not been equipped with these tools and concepts and those kinds of things. So as my wife is kind of teetering on that, nobody thinks that she should have lived, that all the doctors are shocked that she made it because she lost so much blood. Sorry to get too graphic. Hope I'm not getting too graphic with you guys. They also said Jackson not only should he, not be doing as well as he's doing, he shouldn't even be alive. Now he was born, he has cerebral palsy. So he does have that, but just the fact that he's alive, he is a miracle. But as I'm in that, I was in the, what do they call it? It's not a NICU there. It was they don't even have an emergency room at this little rural hospital that we were in. What's the step down from the emergency room? Intensive care, right? Yeah, the ICU. So, and I'm just saying, Jesus, I can't do this. I was just coming off another valley season where my heart had just been thrashed. And I just thought, if I lose my wife and my son in the same night, like I just can't do it. And I said, Jesus, where are you? And I knew, like at that time, I didn't need advice. I didn't need I don't know, to strategize how am I going to get through this and all of those things. I needed his comfort. I needed his presence, right? So I just said, Jesus, where are you? What are you longing to give me? And he just said, Jason, I'm here. I'm with you. And no matter what happens, you were born for this. About a week or two later, I'm in the NICU in that hospital about 6 hours away. And I'm talking with Tony, Tony Stoltzfus, and he's doing a little bit of coaching with me. So the first, I'm giving you an example of, I was able to coach myself. Now Tony's coaching me. And he just had me ask Jesus the question, Jesus, so I was disconnected from my heart. I couldn't and I can't function when I'm disconnected from my heart. Disconnected from my heart, I don't feel like I can connect with Jesus. And Tony just has me ask Jesus a question. Jesus, how do you feel about everything that's happened with this birth? And I saw that Jesus was angry too. And he was grieving with me, and he was there with me. And so through that coaching conversation, that one coaching conversation, I was able to navigate and set a course for how I was going to engage the next 3 years it is now. He turned 3 in April. That's the kind of power that coaching can have. And that's a very extreme example. It's kind of a traumatic example. Obviously, we don't have to use coaching just in traumatic situations. But even in traumatic situations, this is how powerful encounter coaching is.
It's raining.
So, if we can have everybody mute, that would be great. There we go. So that's how powerful one coaching conversation can be, that it can set the course of your life and your engagement with God for the next however many years. And I was able to set a course of, I want to be the best husband, the best father, and use this to be transformed more into the likeness of Christ than had I not gone through something like this. So what we do as encounter coaches is different than traditional coaching or even traditional Christian coaching. So with traditional Christian coaching, we're using universal coaching techniques and tools, and we're kind of superimposing Christian values, which is great, but we're kind of superimposing Christian values with kind of your normal universal coaching skills. What we do as encounter coaches, we can't do what we do without Jesus. We actually allow Jesus to become the coach. We are simply facilitating encounters with him. So we're bringing Jesus into the conversation, and we're going to demonstrate this for you in just a minute. As you saw, there's going to be a live demonstration that's not been rehearsed or anything like that. But we empower people to transform and become more like Christ and fulfill their destiny. We empower them to do that by facilitating encounters with Jesus and allowing him to be the coach, because he's a much better coach than I'll ever be, or you'll ever be, or anybody else will ever be, right? He's a better counselor, he's a better coach, he's a better whatever, fill in the blank. So that's what is so unique about encounter coaching. And in my opinion, why it's so transformational, so powerful. It's not just transactional, it's transformational. We're more interested in who people are becoming, that they're becoming the people God created them to be, than in building a ministry or achieving this goal or that goal. All those things happen when we are transformed into the likeness of Christ and become who he has created us to be. So brief story, or not even a story, but one of the things I had to overcome with two things I had to overcome with learning how to coach and be an encounter coach, more specifically. I had to learn how to stop giving advice because that is so what we have been taught, and especially in Western culture, is that we listen compassionately, maybe, and empathically, maybe, and then we give advice. Like, you should do this or you need to do that, those kinds of things. So giving advice and assuming I knew what the problem was and what the solution was, sitting as the expert, quote unquote. Now I realize how arrogant that really is. That's a strong word, and that wasn't my heart. But when we assume that we know what the problem or the issue is, it circumvents the process, and we end up kind of taking the place of God in those conversations. So those are the kinds of problems that coaching and encounter coaching solves. I want to show you, as opposed to just tell you, what encounter coaching is and how it can transform people. So I've asked Dory to join us. Wave to everybody, Dory. This is Dory. She's amazing. She's been taking some of our workshops, and just love what God is doing in her heart and her life. So she's been a volunteer, or going to volunteer for us today. And here's what I want you guys to pay attention to as I give this demonstration, okay? I want you to look for what makes the encounter coaching approach effective or ineffective. Okay, so that's the first thing. What makes the encounter coaching approach effective or ineffective? 2, if you were in the coachee's chair, so if you were in Dory's place, how would this approach make you feel? So yeah, I'll just leave it there. How would this approach make you feel? And the third thing I want you to think about and look for as you're watching and experiencing this demonstration is, how is this different than what you usually get when you go to somebody with an issue that you have? What's different about this? And what's even different between this and, if you're familiar, if you've had some training in other Christian coaching, or just kind of coaching in general, what's different between the encounter coach approach and just the normal universal coach approach? Okay, so those are the 3 things I want you to look for. Okay, so Dory, if I can have you unmute, and I'm going to ask everybody else, if you can't, there's a little video icon at the bottom left of your, there's a toolbar down there. If you press stop video, that'll just help us minimize distractions and everything for Dory and I as we go through this. And then when we're done, I'll ask you to come back with your video. Thanks, everybody. Okay, Dory, so if you can give us just maybe a minute of background information. So basically, I asked Dory to come with something that's causing some strong emotion. So Dory, if you want to give us just 30 seconds to a minute of background, what's
Sure.
going on that you'd like to be coached around?
Sure, I'd like to be coached. I went out of town for 4 days, and just before I went out of town, I bought some two big planters for the outside of our home. And so I asked my husband, I'll be sure to water them so the flowers don't die. And I went out of town and came home, and the flowers were half dead and had fallen over. The planter had fallen over. I was angry. I mean, it created more emotion in me than I thought it would, but it was like, I don't know. I was furious.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry, still recovering from COVID. I have a little bit of a cough there. So thank you for that, Dory. So if you can think about the moment that anger, you said you were furious. What was the moment when you felt that the strongest? Like, where were you? What was happening when that emotion hit you the strongest? What was going on?
It hit me the strongest when I was pulling up alongside the house, and I could see, I could see the front of the house, and the planters were actually tipped over on the ground, and they were, you could see they were kind of dried up and that were completely dead, but I was half dead. I mean, it was like, I think I saw them tipped over. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Okay. So you pull in the driveway, you see a couple of them are even tipped over. They're almost dead. And that's when the anger hit. So if, excuse me, if you can put yourself back into that moment there, pulling into the driveway, allow yourself to re-experience that as though you're experiencing it now. So pulling into the driveway, you see the flowers, you see the flower pots, and allow that emotion. I'm not going to leave you here, but allow that emotion to surface again. Allow yourself just to feel that for a few seconds here.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you there?
Yep, I'm there.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Dory, if you weren't worried about being a good Christian wife or a good Christian neighbor, who knows what, the neighbors would see here or whatever, but if like you kind of took off all the filters, how would you have wanted to respond just out of that emotion, that anger, that furious? What would you have wanted to do?
Okay, I wanted to scream and yell and just say, I can't believe this. And I guess the words that would come out is, I can't believe this. Don't you care? I think that's the words that would come out. And yeah,
that's really good. So don't you care? Yeah, that's a strong statement. So I'm gonna pull up. I'll pull something up here for you, for everybody to see. If I can share my screen here. Give me just a second. Oh. Okay, there we go. Okay, can everybody see this? Can you see that, Dory?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So if you were able to say those things, actually, let me put it this way. Let's do it this way. When you were in the car and you pulled up and you saw those flowers, half dead and tipped over, and you're feeling that anger, what was that taking away from you in terms of desire? So for those of you that aren't aware or aren't familiar with this is called a desire wheel. We do a lot of work with desires in encounter coaching. So what would that take away from you? As you look at this desire wheel, what desire was that taking away from you?
That's a great question. There's a couple of them maybe, which is security and maybe worth are the two. I mean, so security and worth. I'd probably go with worth.
Okay, yeah, worth. So are you able to share, like, what is it that's touching that worth desire?
Well, what's touching it is just feeling, since I asked, made the question, can you keep the flowers watered so they don't die? And it feels like it took away from my worth. Like I wasn't worth it enough to make the effort to and here it's the flowers and I'm applying that to me, but it wasn't important enough. I wasn't important enough it wasn't a big deal, but it was a big deal to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in fact, the flowers were very expensive, but I don't think that was the reason behind it. I think it was more personal to me.
Yeah, yep. So are you okay if we ask Jesus a few questions around
Mhm.
around this? Okay. So we've identified the desire as worth. So give me just a second. I'm going to connect with Jesus. I'm going to invite you to do the same thing.
Mhm.
And just give me a few seconds, and then I'm just going to give you a question that you can ask Jesus
Mhm.
and hear what he has to say or whatever. So, excuse me, go ahead and do that. Just take a few seconds here. So let's ask Jesus this. So Jesus, was there a time in your life where you nurtured something and cared about something deeply, and someone didn't treat it with the respect and the care
Mm.
that it deserved?
Mm. Okay. Mm. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. He said all the time. It happens all the time. But then he said, my worth doesn't come from them.
Hmm.
Joy, my worth doesn't come from them. It comes from my Father. Wow.
Wow.
That's powerful.
Hmm.
Wow.
So,
Mm. Wow.
so Jesus, you said your worth comes from your Father.
Mm.
When you saw things or maybe even people that you cared deeply about that weren't treated well, or actually, it sounds like from what you're sharing, it sounds to me like he wasn't being treated as like he wasn't being treated well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. He
That's
wasn't.
kind of what he's revealing. Yeah, like he wasn't being treated.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
wasn't being treated.
Okay. So
It
Jesus, when
happened all
you
the time.
right, right.
Mm.
So Jesus, when you weren't being treated well,
Mm.
worthy of who you were,
Mm.
how did you handle that?
Mm. Mm. Wow. Well, he said it hurt
Hmm.
and I cried, but I went to my Father. That's huge.
Yeah. And I'm just curious, like, so Jesus, what did Father tell you when you went to him?
Mm. Well, I'm smiling because he smiled and says, he told me that I am his, and he's secure in that because he knows his Father.
Mhm.
That's huge.
Yeah, good. Okay. So let's ask this. Father, what do you want to say to me
Mm.
about my worth?
Mm. Oh, wow. Well, he said, Dory, you are mine. You are mine. Don't look to things or people for your worth.
Hmm.
look to me. That's huge. Because sometimes, you know, I can think I look to him, but how many times do I run to things or people?
Yeah. So how does that touch your heart to hear him say that?
Oh, it melts my heart. It's like
Huh.
you could just see him looking at you and saying, you are mine. It's just like, wow, talk about giving you worth. You are mine.
Yeah. So here's a curious question for Jesus. So Jesus, if I had asked you to take care of my flowers, what would you have done? How would you have done it? Actually, let me back up. If I had asked you to take care of my flowers, how would that touch your heart that I even asked you to take care of?
Well, he's got this smile and he says, I wait for you to ask, Dory. I wait for you to come to me because it touches his heart when I ask and come to him. It's like I'm waiting for you. I'm here.
Yeah. So what's the emotion? So Jesus, what's the emotion that you're feeling when Dory it comes to you and asks you to take care of things that she cares about? What's the emotion that you're feeling when she asks you to do that?
Well, what I hear is incredible joy.
Yeah.
Incredible joy.
Yeah. And how does that make you feel? To know that it brings him incredible joy.
Yeah, it brings me joy to know it brings him joy.
Yeah. Yeah. So put yourself back in that situation again. You're driving up in the car and you see the flowers. With the revelation that you've just received from Jesus through these encounters you just had, has that changed anything?
Oh.
How do you feel, kind of putting yourself back there again? What's it like now?
Well, it's completely different because the first thing that comes out of my mouth is, it's not about the flowers.
Right.
It's not about the flowers. I always thought it was about the flowers. And it's nothing about the flowers. It's about the worth and about where I was looking for my worth. And that's huge.
Yeah.
Not about the flowers. So it's about going to him for my worth. And yeah, it just changes everything.
Yeah. So if you apply this going forward, in your life, just in general, because this won't be the last time that something like this happens, right?
Right.
For any of us that are married, we can all say amen and hallelujah. These kinds of things happen all the time, right? So if you apply this in the future, where if something happens like the flowers, but now you turn to Jesus and you ask him, Jesus, what are you telling me about my worth right now?
Yeah.
What kind of a difference would that make in your life?
Oh gosh, that'd be huge. That I wouldn't be out there like an empty cup. Will you give me some worth? Will you give me some worth? I'd be getting my worth from him, and then I could enter every conversation and every day filled with the worth from him, and then just change everything. So then even if the flowers were dried up and dead, I would be solid and secure, where I don't think I wasn't solid and secure in him in that situation.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah. That'll make quite a difference, I would think.
Make a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's one practical way you could, we almost want to preempt, so that we're prepared if something like this does happen again. Like, what's a way that you could intentionally lean into what Jesus is sharing with you tonight?
Mm.
Like, is there a question? So even the question I just posed before, like, Jesus, what are you telling me about my worth? Or how could you kind of lean into this and put an action step together with this?
So one action step would be knowing that I look to things and people, make it be an intentional question for him for now every morning or throughout anytime during the day. Say, Jesus, how are you my worth? Show me how you're, just really make that effort to communicate, to lean into him, to lean into him in that worth. And then actually, and even like, so rewind, before I left, I'd probably watered the flowers and had a conversation with him, laughing, saying, well, these might not get watered again, Jesus, but see the different perspective. And so I just trusted, and it's like, whatever, but there's such a difference because I'm not looking for something from somebody.
Yeah.
That'd be huge. So I think it's that conversation, and I don't mean just a regular quiet time. I mean literally a conversation that's talking to him.
So good. Yes. I know you shared before with me that Jesus often smiles.
Yeah.
Even a question like, and again, you can do what you want with this, but what about me is making you smile today?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Because that speaks right to your worth, right?
Right.
Because he wouldn't be smiling over you if he didn't have any worth, right? Yeah.
That would be good.
Good.
Makes me smile. Makes you smile. What about me?
Yeah.
And ask him that every day.
Every day. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, Dory.
Thank
you
you
for being so vulnerable with a bunch of people you don't know.
No, thank you. I really appreciate that. Who would have thought being angry with flowers was tied to my worth? I definitely didn't have a clue. So thank you.
That's what's so great about encounter coaching. What looks like some small thing can lead us to a much deeper place and bring transformation. I mean, that can change your life, right?
Yeah.
Having that encounter with Jesus that you just had, about how much he cares about you and how worthy you are to him, and that can change your life, because now you're no longer pulling on other people for it. You're going to him for it and being transformed into his likeness.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, if everyone wants to come back on with their video, just click that icon again. That would be great. So I'm going to have you guys put in the chat, what did you think of how I worked with Dory here? Like, what stood out to you? You just throw that in the chat. There should be a little chat icon, or you can click on the three dots that say more, and then you'll see chat. I like that, Candace. I shared in your encounter. Yes, it's Jesus and client centered. Absolutely. Huge value, and a huge value of ours. Yeah, that's really good. Good awareness there. Taps into the emotions. Absolutely. Yeah, emotions are the pathway to the heart. We don't need to conjure up any more emotions than we have. We all have plenty, and then plenty of opportunity to feel emotions around things, but that's the pathway to the heart. Good. Yeah, Sunil, like that. Goes to the core of who we are, identity and desires. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, it opens the emotion of Jesus for us. Say more about that, Christian. I like that. If you're able to.
I'm not a perfect bilingual. I'm from the province of Quebec, so
that's okay. You sound good right now.
Okay. During the process, it's about how Jesus feels about what I'm feeling. So that's very different from what we are used to, because I did some inner healing too during my 30 years also of being a Christian, but this is different.
Yeah.
It's very different, and it needs to as the guy that's doing it for the other person, you need to really listen to what Jesus wants to then be asked.
Yes.
So that's,
Absolutely.
you need to be listening to the Holy Spirit. That's a nice challenge.
Yeah. Well, and it is there's techniques to help us to do that.
Yeah.
You know, that we teach through the workshops and those kinds of things. So that's really good, Christian. I appreciate that. Great
Thank
insight.
you. Sorry about the display here. It's I'm living in a construction home, so.
Oh, okay. No worries. No worries. Yep. Oh, I like that, Kim. Yes, Jesus is empathy too. Yeah, Jesus feels what we feel. He's been through everything we've been through. Yeah. So what exactly made the encounter coach approach different than maybe what you've experienced with some other coaching techniques, or even inner healing techniques, or discipleship techniques, or anything like that? What made this different? What was unique about it? And feel free, so you can put it in the chat, or feel free to just kind of speak up. And
Jesus is the coach.
yes. Yeah, that's the biggest difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He's the one who is acting directly into the heart of the person.
Yes. Absolutely. Someone else want to share? What was different about this, or unique about this compared to other methodologies?
It wasn't like you were trying to solve her problem or solve her in a way, but it was like you allowed her to encounter Jesus, and they were having the conversation, and she came up with her own kind of, in a way, solution.
Right. Yes. That's really good. Yeah, so I'm not assuming what the problem is or what the solution is. I'm a fairly intuitive person. It's one of my core strengths. And I cannot tell you how many times as a counselor, when I assumed I knew what the problem was, how many times I was wrong. It's so much better just to let Jesus reveal what he wants to reveal to the person, right? Yeah. Good. You know, I like what Candace put in the chat here. Asking the right questions led her to a tangible encounter. Yeah, it's really good. So compare this to kind of the usual approach you get. You know, like when you go to somebody and they listen and then they give you advice, or maybe they do assume what the problem is and give you the solution, or that kind of thing. How does this impact you differently? So even as you're observing this, how does it impact you differently than that kind of approach, the more traditional approach?
You have to find the solution within yourself more than with how do we say that in English? You know, the kind of word that God says that has an impact. So
Yeah, good.
I think it minimizes miscommunication when the recipient might not have the language for what they're trying to express.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in sessions before with a practitioner, and they weren't understanding what I was trying to communicate. And they took it in a different direction and really kind of continued on that path. far too long. And I had to like reel them back in to, no, this is what I'm trying. No, that's not it. It's this.
Right.
So
Absolutely. I've been there myself. I've been on both sides of that equation. Been the one doing it, and I've been the recipient. Neither position was great. So, yeah, we all hate getting unsolicited advice. So why is it that we keep doing it? Why is it that we keep giving unsolicited advice to one another?
for me, it's I haven't learned how to ask the right questions.
Okay.
That's something I need to learn.
So it's a skill thing for you.
It is, and it's a new approach.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Good.
One thing I liked about it was, I think in a lot of traditional approaches, as the recipient, I'd end up like feeling guilty, like, oh, I shouldn't have gotten angry, I shouldn't have felt that way, or I should have done this instead, or
Right.
whereas this just kind of went all the way around that, just straight to the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. It's good insight.
I also like the empathy part of it. Not that, Jason, you didn't have empathy, but that Jesus, like for me, when I experienced, Jesus knows exactly how I feel. And it seemed like Dory was getting that as well, that Jesus understands. And
Yeah,
so there's like so much healing in that, I feel like.
absolutely. That is what touched me so deeply. So when Tony posed the question to me that I shared with you guys before, how does Jesus feel about what you're going through? That was the most powerful healing thing I could experience, that he was angry too, and he was brokenhearted too, grieving with me. And there's so much healing in that. So yeah, I totally agree. It's really good. Yeah, Raylene, it's about the Lord's agenda. Yeah. And, if it were just about my agenda, or maybe I made the assumption, I might have said something like, it isn't my personality to be this harsh or something like that. But I may have like been led to the conclusion, like, why are you so attached to these flowers? Like, get over the, like, is this just materialism, or is it, you know what I mean? Like, but we could so easily go to that conclusion, right? Like, oh my gosh, this person is so attached to these flowers. You need to repent of being so attached to this material, thing or whatever. It had nothing to do with that, right? That was not, but that's where we can go when we set ourselves up as the expert, which is how we're taught, and especially in most of Western culture. And to kind of, okay, I know the problem. The problem is you're too attached to these flowers, and I know the solution. You need to repent, right? And that would have, how would you have experienced that, Dory?
That would have shut me down and kept the anger inside.
Right, right. Zero transformation whatsoever. Yeah. Now I just feel attacked, probably. So let's see what Barbara says here. You can go like this, rather than those where I or someone else speaks into what they perceive to be the issue. Exactly. Yeah, exactly right, Barbara.
Or
So,
else traditional coaching, I can imagine them just like troubleshooting. Okay, next time, how are you gonna, get your flowers
Good.
successfully watered, and how you can think ahead better, whatever.
that is great, Kim. That's a great contrast. With traditional coaching, we're gonna like strategize, right? We're gonna use our rational brain to strategize how to keep this from happening again. And when we do that, it's not that strategizing is bad in itself or something like that, but we're missing the opportunity to encounter Jesus in this, where he can bring not just healing, but he can bring transformation. I don't know another word to use. A transformation where now it's not just this one incident. It's not just the flowers. this is something that's changing my heart and changing my life going forward. So I'm being changed on multiple levels here, not just the rational brain. I'm trying to strategize, and I'm trying to find a way that this painful thing isn't going to happen to me again, as opposed to I'm embracing this and allowing God to do what he wants in me through this. So that's great. That's a great insight there.
I also think traditional counseling coaching would have, I would have left with the same anger inside me. As I leave this session, the anger is diffused, it's gone. There's no more anger inside.
That's so good. Absolutely. Good. Well, we have about 10 minutes here. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have, either about the demo here or questions about encounter coaching in general or anything like that. Anybody have some questions?
I'm just curious, Jason,
Yes.
how, like, if somebody comes to you and asks you what encounter coaching is, what would you say?
Okay, two things. I'm going to give you something that I would say, but the thing I want to do quickly. So I was it Dory? Was it you and I? So I was just talking about this with somebody. Yeah, I was with Dory. Yeah, so as quick as I can, I actually want to invite them into the experience. So I can sit here and tell you about this till the cows come home, and it is not going to make sense as much as if you simply experience it. So, hey, would you like to be coached? Right? And have them experience it. But if I were going to say, this is what encounter coaching is, I would say we empower people to be transformed into the likeness of Christ through facilitating encounters with Jesus. And that impacts every level of their life and equips them to do the same for others. But until you experience it. So, I kind of described and even gave a couple examples at the very beginning of this webinar. But how many of you felt like you had a real grasp of what this was about before we did the demo? And how many of you feel like, okay, now that we had the demo, I kind of have a better idea of what this looks like? How many of you would say the second part is more true? Once we experience the demo, I have a better idea. Yeah. So I think it's great to give kind of give that definition out there. That's my definition. That's kind of what I say. But as soon as I can get someone to experience it, it's a whole different ballgame. Someone else, question about encounter coaching in general, about what we did here? Yeah, Kim.
Jason, Raylene put something on the chat.
Oh, this seems the same as questions for Jesus. Is this correct? Yeah, so the tool that I used, you learn in the questions for Jesus workshop. The tool that I used is drilling down to desire. Now we have multiple other tools that we can use and that we teach, but that's the one that I used, was the one that you would learn that in the questions for Jesus workshop. Yeah, got it. Yeah, and Candace said, yeah, got a little taste in questions for Jesus. Yeah. So this is it's one of my favorite tools, but it's just one of many. Yeah.
So maybe this relates to there being other tools, but supposing someone comes to you and it's not a situation of strong emotion, like they just want to figure out their priorities or schedule their day better or something that seems maybe more unrelated. How do you?
Yeah, so a couple of things I do. So one, we train you in transactional or rational coaching as well through the Foundations of Coaching workshop. If you go through that workshop. Excuse me. What I often find though, in my experience, is that even with those things that feel more transactional, right? Like I just need to figure out, Like, I think I just need to figure out how to clean my garage, to use a, an easy example. There may be something deeper going on. Like, why is it that you aren't able to just, quote, discipline yourself to clean your garage? So I'm always exploring that. Is there something deeper here in your beliefs, in your emotions, or even at a desire level that's disconnected? And that's why discipline isn't working. So give you the tools to, if it really is just something that's rational brain, strategize, that kind of thing, we can do that. But I'm always kind of aware that there may be something deeper happening. Yes, Raylene, the training is available online. Matter of fact, we have Coaching the Heart starting this coming Tuesday, so a week from today, is online. Yeah, thank you, Terry. Terry just posted the website. And when does your next workshop start, Terry?
We have one in August starting the 20th. Ours are on Saturday mornings and Jason's are on Tuesdays. So it helps for people who work.
Yep. So yeah, but the whole program is online. And I know Terry and she works with a lady named Jill as well. They do some in person as well. So can you work at your own pace? To some degree, yes. So usually it takes people between 12 to 15 months to go through each of the workshops. I guess I would recommend not spacing it out too far, because you just lose too much momentum, and they each build on each other. But yeah, and Terry, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I agree. That's great. Each of them deal with a different aspect of it, but they build on each other. So it doesn't matter what order you take them in.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Raylene asks, can you pay as you go? Yes, there are payment plans available. It's on the website when you go to checkout.
Yep.
I have a question.
Yeah, Christian.
How much time did it take you to feel comfortable with this approach? Because it's like you, with traditional counseling, it's like you have some power over the situation, you have a bit of control.
I don't know about that.
You're the one in charge. But when you do it like you do it, you have to leave. You have to put Jesus first. You like John the Baptist, he says, I must decrease and he must increase. So it's quite different. And when did you feel that you were really inspired with the right questions? Because it's not only a human thing, it's a supernatural thing.
So that's a great question. It's causing me to reflect and kind of figure it out. I mean, I did come into this with, a counseling background. And so I'm very familiar kind of with the setting, and, I'm comfortable with that kind of thing. I feel actually most at peace once we get to Jesus and we're asking Jesus questions, facilitating those encounters. That's when I really feel like totally comfortable. And now, that being said, it did take me a while to, I guess, figure out how to phrase the right, and we teach you that. There are 5 principles that we go by when we're thinking of questions to ask Jesus. So that's something you learn. It's a skill set that you can learn. so that took a little bit of practice, right? Like, and there was a little bit of nervousness there and whatever. But because it's where I feel most comfortable, you know, I just, for whatever reason, naturally for me, that's where I feel most comfortable. When Jesus is doing the talking in the ministry and all of that, I feel a lot more comfortable. So how long did that take me? I mean, probably a year or two, you know? And so Tony has some great resources. He has a Questions for Jesus app. He has a Questions for Jesus book. He has a book called The Invitation with all these demos that, you know, you can scan a QR code and pull up these demonstrations that he does. And I would memorize different questions for different desires and stuff like that. So it's like anything else. Like, in order to learn guitar, you have to learn scales first, right? And then as you get real familiar with that kind of stuff, then you can be really creative with it, right? It frees you up. And so it took a little bit, you know, just to kind of learn the scales, so to speak, before I could, you know, really kind of be creative with it and that kind of thing.
Can I jump in, Jason?
Yeah, please.
I don't have a psychology background training, so that's one thing I really appreciate about our workshops is they're very interactive, and we put you to work right away, practicing right away. Of course, we encourage more practice, and the more practice, it's better, easier for you to jump right in. And so that is one thing I think that is really beneficial.
Yeah.
The highly interactive, get right down to it, jump right in.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
They're called workshops for a reason. We put you to work. We actually have you doing the skills in the workshop so we can give you feedback, you know, and help you along there. We also mentor coaching as part of the program. Like, if you go through the program to become a certified encounter coach, we have mentor coaching, where you'll coach somebody and we give you feedback and, you know, things you do great and areas you can grow. And all that kind of stuff helps.
Can we really become a certified coach with doing it online? I mean, it's not as the same thing as being in person with someone and really practice. You know,
Yeah.
this is a screen, so this is different for me. But
I'll ask, there's a few people on here that have taken a workshop or are currently taking workshops. How would you guys answer that question? So Dory or Kim, Jeremy, I know, or
Sunil,
Sunil. Yeah.
Janet.
I'll jump in. I have only done it online. I haven't been to in person, but the coaching works just as well online. I haven't felt it's amazing how Jesus works in your life when you're coaching. It's just like we're tonight, we're interacting, and then we meet during the week with our cohort in addition to the class. And so, I mean, it works great.
Yeah. I have found, so we put this all online kind of when COVID first hit. Previous to that, it was just in person. And once COVID hit and we couldn't have in-person workshops, we had to pivot pretty fast. And I know a lot of us were concerned, is it going to have the same impact online as it does in person? We're all highly relational people. We wouldn't be doing this if we weren't all highly relational people, right? And my personal opinion, it has been just as powerful. And as a matter of fact, if I could go back and do the workshop, like if I did it again, I would have actually preferred to do it online as opposed to in person, which I never would have thought I would say that, but it's true. So yes, you can be a qualified, very competent, certified encounter coach, even all online.
It's way easier to fit into your schedule.
Yeah, that's right.
Barbara had a question, Jason.
Okay. Go for it, Barbara.
It's in the chat. Sorry.
Oh, okay. How do you proceed when someone wants to engage but isn't yet receiving revelations in response to questions for Jesus? Great question. Excuse me. So, I mean, there's a few different things you can do. One is like if they're not comfortable and they just want to stay kind of in their rational brain, we can do that and develop rapport, and maybe they get to that place where they feel a little bit more safe, right? But really getting them to re-experience whatever it is that's causing the strong emotion. So you saw when I was working with Dory, I said, think about the peak of that emotion. What was happening at the peak of that emotion there? Allow yourself to feel that again. So that's the pathway to the heart, and that's where Jesus wants to speak. When we're able to kind of allow ourselves to have that emotion surface again and feel it, that's what opens up the doorway for Jesus to really encounter people. Did that answer your question, Barbara? Or okay, good. And I believe, like, one of the things, well, I have, scripture says, my sheep hear my voice. And so I sometimes, when I'm working with a client, I'll say, I have zero doubt that you're going to hear Jesus speak. And so far, so this is not about me. So I don't want this to come across like I'm an egotist or something, because it's not about me. It's just about who Jesus is, that he always shows up. I've never had a situation where somebody just never couldn't hear from Jesus, because that's who Jesus is. So I've had people where they're like, I don't think I'm hearing anything. And we've had to navigate that, but we've always navigated it. And they've always, mostly they're doubting themselves whether they really hear or not. Have you found this method to be effective for persons who have experienced a lot of trauma, excuse me, in their lives? Unhealed persons who have not processed much? Yes, I have. In my experience, I have. Terry, do you want to speak to that?
I agree. I have as well. It often takes, more than one session because those emotions keep coming up. But yeah, absolutely. We ask Jesus where he was and go from there.
Yeah, that's an area that I'm drawn to personally, because I've experienced a lot of trauma in my life. And it's been so profound for me. I really enjoy bringing that for other people that have experienced a lot of trauma. Oh, why do I say that, Joe? Oh, what did I say? Why do you say that, Jason? I don't know what I said.
Yeah, you said that you would have liked to have done it online.
Oh, okay. I'm an introvert. So that's part of it.
Although he does really well at in person, so don't let him fool you.
Thank you, Terry. But I like being able to reflect with some privacy kind of thing, and the online allows me to do that. I found there were some times that I wasn't fully able to engage my heart because I'm picking up on what everybody else is feeling. I'm a feeler. If you've heard that, I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but it's kind of a discernment thing, feeler thing, whatever. Like I'm picking up on everything everybody else is feeling, what's going on in the room, and it was hard at times to really engage my heart because of that. Online, I just mute and turn the video off, and I'm in my own little world, right? that helped me. And I'm sure it's different for different people, but that was my experience. Well, I know we're about 10 minutes after here. I don't want to keep anybody longer than they need to. So, feel free to go. I'm happy to stay and answer a few more questions if anybody has any more questions. So I'll just share this in closing. Yeah, you're welcome, Aileen. I believe in encounter coaching because I see daily the lasting results of life-changing transformation in people. That's why I believe in encounter coaching. I was a pastor of a church and I loved what we did. We had great, very impactful worship and, for the most part, I thought, the messages were good and we brought in speakers from everywhere and we had groups and all of the things, that you have in church. And I think we did foster some transformation there. If we made an analogy to baseball, I think we were batting over 300, which is pretty good. But what I see with encounter coaching, I would say 99% of the time, people are absolutely transformed, life-changing transformation that isn't just goosebumps and goes away by the next Sunday, but it's lifelong, lasting transformation that happens in people's hearts. And that's why I love this stuff. So, all right. Well, go to metaformation.com if you want some more information. Again, we have Coaching the Heart starting next Tuesday. I'm doing the calling journey. If you have any questions about that, let me know. That's actually this weekend, Friday evening and Saturday morning, Eastern time. And we have a plethora of other workshops and resources for you at metaformation.com. If you're interested in being coached, let me know. We can see if we might be a good fit as far as being coached. So hopefully you all have my email. I'll put it in the chat real quick. Now let me know if you have any other questions about MetaFormation or any of the workshops, certification. Just a second here. There's that. And then Terry, do you want to post that link again, just in case for everybody? I guess we can just metaformation.com. I think that would work. You're muted, Terry. Yeah, sorry, Candace, go ahead.
I have something that just came to mind just real quick. I guess it's built in your whole model, but how do you gauge when someone's ready to receive, let's say, like a pass for certification? Like how do you measure that? How do you gauge that when they're going throughout the process?
Yeah. So we just have so many things in place. You're going to get so much practice. Okay, so first you'll go through all the workshops and all the engagement there. You also have to have 100 hours of coaching experience before you can be certified, and you'll take mentor coaching. So that's where we really can see, like, okay, this person's really getting it. They're employing the encounter coaching tools, all those kinds of things. And you'll have a final mentor coaching session where you get to bring in a client that we don't know, and you'll coach them for 45 minutes, and then we give you 45 minutes of feedback. And that's where we're making that determination that yes, you've met all the requirements and you're able to use these tools efficiently, sufficiently. So that's how we do that.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions before we go? All right. If you think of something later, email me, text me, call me, whatever you need. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Jason.